An internal affairs investigation has been launched at the Department of Corrections into the apparent suicide of an inmate. Last night at around 6, T.I. Dasi was found hanging in his cell, barely clinging to life. Here's more.
At around 6 last night, corrections officers at the Department of Corrections in Manila were conducting routine checks when they discovered an inmate hanging inside his cell. That inmate has been identified as 20-year-old T. Dasi. Deputy Director Carla Borja.
He did still have a faint pulse when he was secured by the officers, so they called the ambulance and he was transported to the hospital.
Borja says Dasi died about an hour later. Details about his apparent suicide are all part of an investigation. Borja could not release details to the public just yet, such as what kind of material Dasi used to hang himself, how long he had been hanging before anyone noticed, or whether any other inmate is involved. Dasi was being held in Post 5.
Post 5 is a housing unit where we are currently housing some of our detainees and inmates in single cell housing, and for Mr. Dasi, he was there waiting for security classification upon his revocation of parole.
Dasi had about 2 years left on his sentence. He was convicted in April last year for theft of property and sentenced to 3 years, but the judge suspended 2.5 years of his sentence, which meant that he only needed to serve 6 months with credit for time served. So he was released from prison almost immediately. However, while on parole, Dasi had committed another crime of aggravated assault.
During the time when he was released on parole, he committed a second offense for aggravated assault, which was pled down to assault as a lesser included offense of aggravated assault, where he was placed on probation. But then because of that second conviction, his parole was revoked in February of this year.
That means Dasi was required to serve out his original sentence of 3 years with credit for time served. He was sent back to prison in February of this year. Borja says although Dasi had never shown signs of suicidal tendency, he did have some disciplinary issues. Meanwhile, DOC is in contact with Dasi's family.
We have been in contact with the next of kin, and we're going to meet with the next of kin later on as well to see if there's anything that we could possibly do to help the family grieve the loss of their loved one.
Borja says Dasi was only at Post 5 temporarily while he was awaiting classification to move into a permanent area of DOC.